Right, back again. It's a bit brighter. This has been on there 5-10 minutes. It's got milky already. It's got a load more oil. And something to tip it into. So we've got enough for about 5 oil changes, I think. If it's still bad after that, I think it's time for a new system. I mean, it was time for a new system before we started, but once you put a new coil in there, you're kind of stuck. Oh, that's cold. I might get the hot air gun going again, get this all warmed up. Right, while we're waiting for that to get a good vacuum, if it ever does, I've got that out of the box to use. It's been sat in I got a little box to keep all my hosepipe into the van, don't get wet. Went to use that and the handle was all sort of loose and it wouldn't shut off. Anyway, we took it apart just to see what had gone wrong, and they've just used a normal steel spring. I think it was a bit longer than that originally. Anyway, so I found somebody on eBay selling stainless steel springs. I wasn't sure how much compression it should have had, and the wire's a bit thinner than the original. So we got an extra long spring for a couple of pounds. So that if that's too short, I can make another one. Anyway, I'm just going to give that a bit of a clean out and put some silicone grease on it, and we'll put it all back together and see how that works. That should slide up and down like that. That sits in there like that. The handle pulls on this knurled piece here and sort of basically pulls it out. Oops, pulls it out like that. And that end piece pushes against that seal. That sits in there, and the water comes out that hole. And then obviously it's got the different options for what spray pattern you want. Anyway, it'll either work or it won't, but it's every few years these things seem to break, so I thought, well, rather than just buying yet another one, I'd have a go at fixing it. Okay, well, that's all back together. If anything, that's a bit easier than it was previously, so that spring might be a bit weak. But as far as I can tell, blowing through it, it seals. It's got enough pressure to seal it, and I think the water pressure would actually push it shut anyway, so that would add to the sealing of it. So yeah, hopefully that's a successful repair. I don't know how this is looking. We're going to 8,000, and that oil has gone all milky again, so I think we'll change that. It's been there for about an hour. We've got enough to do about 3 more changes, but it wouldn't get under 10,000 yesterday, I don't think, so that's an improvement. Some new Wago terminals I've got to try. They're just single wire straight through, which I thought might be more useful sometimes than the side-by-side ones. That's the number, and they'll do up to 4mm, so it's quite a big cable. What current they're rated at, 20 amp. That's big enough for most stuff. I probably wouldn't use them on anything much bigger than that anyway. Yeah, got a box of those to try out. Right, I'm using the time while that's vacuuming. It's down to 6,700 now, so to tidy up the tool bag. So I generally keep all my screwdrivers and pliers in one side, and spanners and sockets and things in the other. So anyway, I'll tip them all out. I'll start putting them back in and show the progress as I go along. Okay, I've got a set of deep sockets. I think there's a 6, a 7 and an 8mm. They're Koken, Japanese ones. Got a set cheap, I think, somewhere. 3/8 wobble drive extension. It don't stay in there very well, but anyway, that's where that lives. And then in this top pocket I've got chisel, centre punch, pin punch, like you could knock in a nail, or if you've got one of them roll pins, I forget what I got that for now. Anyway, that I think that's a 5 and a 6mm. They usually get used on old agitators for knocking the pins out. That one will fit the strap agitators. It's got a pin. Is it them? It might be the. I think it might be them. That again, that's a smaller. That's a 4mm. That's a 10mm one, I think. 3/8. Like a shaft on a fan mode if you're trying to knock it out of the fan blade. There we go. Okay, and I've got 3 plastic tubs, an old baked bean can, and those are hand washed, so that's the milk carton, I think. And basically what I do, all the spanners live in there, just chuck them in, and I keep meaning to drill a hole through and put a rivet in there or something just to hold them in place. They're getting a bit tired now, so I can probably do with some new tubs. Right, I've got a 12, 2 10s because I lost one and then found it again, an 8 and a 6, and these are brittle branded, but they're made by Irega in Spain. And then we've got 2 Wago ones, which are there. That's an 8 and a 6, but it's the extra wide jaw ones. And then we've got an old-fashioned monkey wrench F-type, which I think used to belong to my granddad, who I never got to meet. They all live in there. So yeah, you can see how if that was tied in there, it'd be a lot better. And then this one is spanners, and then we've got basically a 19 Roebuck Draper, 17 brittle, 15 Draper, 14 Draper, 13 12 in Draper, and then I lost 10mm Halfords because I lost me 10mm. It's a 9mm which I've got in a, I think I bought a job lot on eBay, and I'd never use a 9mm for anything. And then that one I think is a 3/8 because I needed one for something. And then somewhere in here is the 11mm that belongs in there. I keep them on that little ring because it's just handy to carry them all in one go. We've got a 16mm combination one, but because it's got an offset end it doesn't sit on there very well, so that just lives in there loose. And we've got, I think it's a Palmyra in Spain, 11/16 5/8. That's 14 and 17mm Brassol, Germany. Brittle, that's 7/8 and a ½ inch. ½ inch and 9/16 brittle, and that's Whitworth brittle, 5/16 and 3/8 Whitworth. Used to see them, some of the old press gold stuff had Whitworth plugs where you had to take the plug out to put your fitting in, to put your gauges on, and some of the agitator bolts on the old forward tanks were Whitworth, or British Standards, or whatever it was, BS. 3/8 BS or 5/16 Whitworth, I'm not sure. Anyway, that's goes in there as well. A T-handle, that's the wobble drive end on it, that's Koken, that just sort of lives in there. 3/8 extension, brittle, 8 in the ends. No name Chinese made thing. 13 and 10 I think it is. It's good for jabbing in and lining things up. Got the spare bridge ratchets. Facom 8, 10, 12 and 13 ratchet spanner. That's a brittle 13 and 17. Old brittle ratchet. Had that 35 years, I think. Frightening. That socket is a speed drill, 13mm, but it's got a couple of magnets in the side to hold the nuts in. Belongs on that rail. Has it 5/8, 3/4 flare nut spanner. That one is another Palmyra, 1/2 inch 9/16. Valve key for the oxysetting. Feeler gauges. And that one is 1/2 inch 9/16 open ended, and then I've got one of these Nipex keys with all the different ends on it. Okay, then we've that little tub's full of we've got a valve key for adjusting Danfoss, the big expansion valves. You get this little key, and we've got a key for doing the replaceable cores, the tubs for those. Then we've got a little Imperial Imp pipe cutter, a little Rothenberger, we'll do up to 5/8, 16mm, and then we've got a bigger one that'll do up to 7/8, I think. And then we've got that one's the next one up, Imperial Eastman Big Imp. It's back when they had a metal wheel and not the new ones that are plastic. And then we've got this one, Nipex, which is quite good because you put the pipe in there and then you just slide that down, and the wheel is slightly sprung loaded so it gets a bit of tension on it, and then when you finish you just press that button and release it. You save a lot of time winding it in and out, and it's got a deburr on this. Quite expensive, but I think it's worth the money. That lives in there. Got a tired old mirror. Goes in there. And then a toothbrush, which is handy if you're working on things, you're going to put your gauges on, all the connection area is dirty, you can give it a scrub, get rid of all the dust so you don't get that in the pipes or in your gauges. It goes like that. And then we've got a set of sockets. There's another one that's missing off of there, that lives on there. Oh, there it is. What's that one? That's a 5mm Allen key. 4mm, 4mm, 5, I think that's a 6. 13mm socket. Posi drive number 3, we've got a 4. Phillips. Hex, extension and reducer, I think that's 13mm. 732s or something. 17mm, another 13mm. 11, 10, is that a 12, 11 and 10, something like that, might be 1/2 inch. Anyway, that one's another speed drill one. I did get a couple of them off eBay. They're both 13mm. And then we've got a Stanley knife or box cutter, lids in there. And a file that was a bit longer. I used it to lever something and the end snapped off, so don't use files as levers. It's the lesson there. I think that's it for that side. And then we've got that lot to try and get in the other side. Okay, we've got a Toggle branded wire stripper. Just pull it out and poke one. This side would cut. That's the wire strip inside. Just poke the wire through there, and then with your finger in there you just spin it around the cable a couple of times, and then it's scalded it just enough to split it without going through to the inner cores. That lives in there. Got a load of little stubby screwdrivers, which are mainly brittle. That one's a Stanley one, but it's made by Bost, who make them for brittle. It's the same screwdriver basically. And then that one, I think, Spear & Jackson. I had a green one but it's gone missing. That was a Posi drive. I had a Phillips one that's gone missing. They all live in that little pocket at the front. Okay, I've got that wire stripper which I don't use. I didn't get on with it. He seems to cut too deep or not deep enough. You're supposed to be able to spin it around the cable and then slide it down the length of it, and the blade in there swivels. depending on what direction you're going. It's got an adjuster at the bottom. I could never get it to do what I wanted. But anyway, I don't like chucking anything away, so that lives in there. Got a scriber, which is good for scratching and marking out things. And then we've got a deburring tool, ratchet crimpers. We've got a diamond stone for sharpening things, 2 different grades. Offset ratcheting screwdriver, takes the 1/4 inch bits and the 5/16 bits for the bigger screws and things. Got a 6, 7 and 8 mil nut driver, which is quite common for hose clips, like Jubilee clips, hose clamps, 10 mil. They kind of live in there. What else we got? We've got a 3/8 drive nut spinner. We've got sockets on there. And we've got it's an 8 mil one. Which I think we were using for cold rooms. If you've got a cam-lock cold room, I think they're 8 mil. Some more brittle slip joint pliers. CK wire cutters, these are really good. You can cut pipe with them. I've cut 3/8, 1/4, 1/2 inch pipe. You can just about shear through it if it's soft drawn. They would Nipex, I think, but Draper. You can get some Draper ones that are the same. Nipex make them for Draper. No name wire strippers. Not very good because they're imperial. They're like American wire gauge. They don't work on our cable very well. Fackham wire cutters. These are not. I'm not impressed with them really. They do the job, but they're not as good as some of the other ones. Q-Tech. I've had these. Have a date on them. 95/12. So 12th month 95. I think it's when they're made because they used to come with a 5-year warranty. So I think I've had my money's worth out of those. I think I got them cheap actually. They were selling them off because they were getting near their expiry date in the shop. These stainless steel cutters used mainly for cutting cable ties and things underwater so they don't go rusty when you're doing ice bank control sensors. And I've got a set of these Japanese cable tie cutters. They've got a little wide bit there in the jaw for gripping, and then they're like a flush cut, so if you cut the cable tie off, when you cut it off like that, you don't get much sticking out with these that you can actually catch your hand on, like a flush cut. I don't know how far we got then because it wasn't recording. Another Stanley knife. We've got some bits, X bits in a film container. For the back ratchet driver and that insulated screwdriver that takes bits. And then we've got these two. This one's not very good. It's supposed to do Phillips and Posi drive. It doesn't do either of them very well. It's a waste of money. Right, well we got the vacuum level down to a vacuum level, not as good as we'd like. We've run out of fresh oil. I've got that running, just sucking air through because I just dry it out a bit. So the air's drier than what the oil is. I might drain that out. We've dumped a bit of 404A in there, just about to see what it does. But, I've got a feeling it's still going to be too wet to run. We shall see. If it does run, it's going to want a new dryer in there. And I'm not sure whether that's a dryer or an accumulator, this thing here. not sure if that's an accumulator or a big suction dryer. Can't see why they put a suction dryer on it, but there's a lot of things they do. It's straight out on the LP. We might not have enough gas in there. Or it might be a blocked up. Well, see, that shows the LP works. So how it got moisture in there, I don't know. Let's crack that open. I think it might be time for a new one. Okay, we've got it running. Unless that compressor's actually running backwards, which it might be. There's a bit of things in there. I think it'd be growling more if it was. It's not pumping. 78 suction, 95 discharge. So something's gone wrong in there. Head's getting very hot. Maybe it's got might have ice in the pipework or something, so the compressor might be in a vacuum and the pipework might not be. Yeah. I think that's it for this. Put more than enough effort into it. Well, I don't know what we've learned, if anything. To when to quit and when to keep going. Basically, come and looked at the system, had no gas in it, pressure tested it, leak in the evaporator, ordered a new evaporator, come out, fitted it, and no point during the pressure testing did it sound like it had water in it. No water, didn't get any water come out when we took the gauge lines off or anything. And generally, if you've got a leak in the middle of a coil, you wouldn't expect to get that much. I can't think of a time I've ever had a coil leak in the centre of a coil where it's got that much water in it, if any. Especially when the low pressure switch seems to work properly. It should have cut off long before it would have got that much in there. Yeah, and it was definitely in the old coil as well, not the new one. It didn't come in, because that's another issue. You can get parts, so don't know what's happened in the factory. When I tipped the old coil up and down, tipped it up and down, a few times, we got some drips of water to come out of it. Time first. There we go, coming traffic information. So by that time we'd already put the new coil on there, so that was a couple £100 right off, no matter what, because we couldn't send it back and it's contaminated, and I'll never need another one on some obscure Chinese made chiller that we don't, So we then thought, well, if I put a day's labour into it and some time with the vac pump and vac pump oil, and we can get it dry, then we've saved, we've just wasted a day's labour basically. When you work for yourself, it doesn't actually cost you anything to do, obviously you've lost a day, which you've got to make up. You basically end up working a day for free, so you end up making it up on a Saturday or something. But it's not like you've got an employee who you're actually paying a wage to. So that was a kind of our logic with it. It's just turned out to be a waste of time, really. So yeah. So I'm going to have to quote them for a replacement system.